The stagecoach rolled into Rawhide, Wyoming on a dusty afternoon in June of 1878, carrying a widow and 5 daughters who looked like they had been through hell and back. And Isaac Logan watched from the porch of his modest ranch house, thinking his quiet life was about to get a whole lot more complicated. He had been mending a bridle when he heard the horses approaching, the creak of wheels cutting through the peaceful prairie air that surrounded his property just outside town. Isaac set down his work and stood, shading his eyes against the bright sun as the coach came to a stop near his fence line. The driver, old Pete Hutchins, who ran the weekly route from Cheyenne, called out to him. "Isaac, got some folks here who need help. Their ticket was only to Rawhide, but the boarding house is full up with miners passing through. Thought maybe you could point them towards someone who might have room." Isaac walked toward the fence, his boots crunching on the dry ground. When he got closer, the coach door opened and a woman stepped out, her black mourning dress dusty from travel but her bearing proud despite obvious exhaustion. She was perhaps 30 years old with dark blonde hair pinned up beneath a simple bonnet, and her eyes were a striking blue that met his directly without shame or hesitation. "Madam," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "I am Josephine Barrett," she said, her voice steady though he could hear the weariness in it. "These are my daughters. We have traveled from Ohio to start new lives here. I was told there would be lodging available." As she spoke, 4 more girls climbed out of the coach, ranging in age from what looked like 7 or 8 up to perhaps 17 or 18. They all had variations of their mother's coloring, though some were darker and some lighter. The eldest stood close to her mother, protective and watchful. The youngest clutched a worn cloth doll. Pete climbed down from his seat, shaking his head. "Like I said, the boarding house is packed. There is that room above the general store, but Ed Morgan said it would not be ready for another week at least. Has to fix the roof." Isaac looked at the woman and her daughters standing in the dust and heat, clearly at the end of a long journey with nowhere to go. He thought about his ranch house with its 4 empty bedrooms that had sat unused since he bought the place 3 years ago. He thought about how his sister back in Kansas would tan his hide if she heard he turned away a family in need. He thought about how those blue eyes looked both fierce and fragile at the same time. "I have room," he heard himself say. "It is not fancy, but I have got bedrooms going to waste and a roof that does not leak. You and your daughters can stay until you find something more permanent." Josephine's eyes widened slightly. "Sir, we could not impose on a stranger." "It is not an imposition if I am offering, madam. The house is big enough, and I will not have it said that folks came to Rawhide and found no hospitality." He looked at Pete. "Help me get their trunks down." The oldest daughter stepped forward then, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Mother, we do not know this man." "Hush, Iris," Josephine said gently, but Isaac could see she shared her daughter's caution. "My name is Isaac Logan. I run cattle on 200 acres here. Been in Rawhide 3 years. You can ask anyone in town about me. Reverend Walsh will vouch for my character. Sheriff Brennan, too. I am just offering a roof until you get settled. Nothing more, nothing less." He could see Josephine weighing her options, which likely were not many. Travel money only went so far, and 5 daughters to feed and shelter was a heavy burden for a woman alone. Finally, she nodded. "We accept your generous offer, Mr. Logan, but only until we can make other arrangements, and we will contribute to the household expenses. We can discuss that later. Right now, let us get you and these girls out of the sun." With Pete's help, they loaded the family's belongings onto Isaac's wagon, which he had driven into town that morning for supplies. There were 3 trunks and several carpet bags, everything the Barrett women owned in the world, apparently. The girls climbed into the back while Josephine sat up front with Isaac, her spine straight and hands folded in her lap. As they rode toward his ranch, Isaac learned the names of the daughters. Iris was indeed 18, just a few months past her birthday. Then came Lily at 15, Rose at 13, Violet at 10, and little Daisy, who had just turned 8. The youngest three chattered among themselves in the back, their spirits not yet dampened by whatever hardships had brought them west. Iris and Lily were quieter, more watchful. "Your husband?" Isaac asked quietly as they drove, keeping his voice low enough that the younger girls would not hear. "Died last November. Pneumonia took him fast. He had debts I did not know about. The bank took our home. I had a cousin who had written about opportunities out west, said a widow with a good head on her shoulders could make a life here. So we sold what little remained and bought tickets." Her voice was matter-of-fact, but he heard the pain underneath. "I am sorry for your loss. Thank you. It has been hard on the girls, especially the younger ones. They do not fully understand yet why their father is not coming back." Isaac's ranch house came into view, a solid 2-story structure he had built himself with help from neighbors. It was painted white with green shutters and a wide porch wrapped around the front and one side. There was a barn, a chicken coop, a smokehouse, and various other outbuildings. The property sat in a small valley with Rawhide Creek running through it, cottonwood trees providing shade near the water. "It is beautiful," Josephine said softly, and he heard genuine appreciation in her voice. "It suits me. Plenty of room for the cattle and horses. Good water. The house is bigger than I need, honestly. I had thoughts of a family when I built it, but those plans did not work out." He did not elaborate and she did not ask, which he appreciated. Some stories were better left untold, at least at first meeting. His engagement to Sarah Pembroke had ended 2 years back, when she decided ranch life was not for her, and ran off with a saloon owner from Laramie. It had stung at the time, but now felt like a lucky escape. The girls spilled out of the wagon with the resilience of youth, the younger ones immediately drawn to the chickens pecking in their yard. Isaac helped Josephine down, noticing she winced slightly as she stepped on her left foot. "You are hurt, just sore from travel. I will be fine." He let it go but made a mental note. Inside, the house was clean but sparse, decorated the way a bachelor decorated, which was to say hardly at all. The main room had a large stone fireplace, a table with chairs, a sofa and 2 armchairs that had seen better days. The kitchen was well equipped at least. He had a good stove and plenty of cookware. "The bedrooms are upstairs," he said, leading the way. "4 of them up here plus mine down the hall from the kitchen. I will take the downstairs room. You and the girls can have these." Josephine shook her head immediately. "We cannot displace you from your own bedroom, Mr. Logan. You are not. The downstairs room is fine, has a bed and everything I need." This was true enough. He had kept that room furnished for guests that rarely came. "This big one here can be yours. The other 3 can split up the girls however makes sense." The rooms were indeed generous, each with a real bed frame and mattress, a dresser, and a wardrobe. Simple but more than adequate. Josephine looked around the largest bedroom, which had windows facing east and south, letting in good light. "This is very kind of you," she said quietly. "Kinder than I had any right to expect from a stranger. Folks out here look after each other. Has to be that way when the land is this big and unforgiving." He shifted his weight, suddenly aware of how close they were standing in the bedroom. "I will bring up your trunks. You all can get settled. There is a pump in the kitchen for fresh water and I can heat some on the stove if you want to wash up. Supper is usually around 7, but I am no great cook, so do not expect much." Iris appeared in the doorway, her expression still wary. "We can cook, Mr. Logan. If you are providing shelter, the least we can do is earn our keep." "I am not asking you to earn anything, even so. She looked at her mother. "We are not charity cases." "Iris," Josephine's voice held a warning note. "It is all right," Isaac said. "I understand. Everybody needs their pride. If you want to help with cooking and such, I would not say no. Heaven knows my biscuits could break teeth." That got a slight smile from the girl, and he counted it as progress. He brought up the trunks, making multiple trips while the Barrett women began the process of unpacking and settling in. By late afternoon, the house had transformed. Linens appeared on beds. A few feminine touches materialized on dressers and windowsills, and the sound of female voices filled rooms that had been silent too long. Isaac retreated to the barn to finish his evening chores, feeding the horses and checking on the small herd of cattle in the near pasture. His mind was still processing the sudden change to his quiet life. 5 daughters. He had always wanted a family, but he had pictured building up to it gradual-like, not having it arrive all at once in a cloud of dust and desperation. When he returned to the house, the smell of cooking greeted him. Real cooking, not the simple beans and bacon he usually threw together. Iris and Lily had taken over his kitchen and were working with practiced efficiency. The table was set with his mismatched plates and cups. The younger girls had been washed and combed and sat waiting patiently. Josephine descended the stairs in a fresh dress, her hair redone. She still wore black for mourning, but she had shed the travel dust and looked more herself, whoever that was. She was lovely, he realized, in a quiet way that had nothing to do with flash and everything to do with strength and grace under pressure. "Please sit," she said, gesturing to his own table. "The girls have prepared supper." It was chicken and dumplings, green beans from tins they had apparently brought with them, and fresh biscuits that put his sad attempts to shame. Isaac sat and bowed his head as Josephine said grace, thanking the Lord for safe travel, for shelter, for the kindness of strangers. When she finished, the girls served the food and conversation slowly started to flow. He learned that Josephine had been a teacher before marriage, that Iris loved books and hoped to continue her education somehow, that Lily could draw beautifully, that Rose wanted to learn to ride horses, that Violet collected interesting rocks, and that little Daisy missed her father with a heartbreak that caught in Isaac's throat. "Papa used to tell me stories every night," she said softly, "about princesses and dragons." "What kind of stories?" Isaac asked gently. "Adventures, where the princess saved herself and the dragon became her friend. He sounds like he was a good father." "The best," Josephine said quietly, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "John was many things, but he loved these girls with everything in him." After supper, Isaac excused himself to the porch while the women cleaned up despite his protests. He sat in his rocking chair watching the sun set over the prairie, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. The door opened and Josephine stepped out, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the cooling air. "May I join you? It is your porch too, for now." She sat in the other chair, and for a while they just rocked in comfortable silence. Finally she spoke. "Why did you help us? Truly, most men would not take in a widow and 5 daughters. The talk alone would give them pause." Isaac considered his answer carefully. "I suppose because I know what it is like to need help and not have it. When I first came out here, I had nothing but determination and a land claim. Neighbors helped me raise this house, helped me through the first winter when I did not know what I was doing. A man named Carl Hendricks probably saved my life by teaching me to read weather signs. He died the next year, got caught in a flash flood. But I never forgot what he did. Figure the only way to repay that kind of debt is to pass it forward. That is a good philosophy. It is also selfish in a way. This house is too quiet, has been for too long. I told myself I liked the solitude, but truth is, it gets lonely. So maybe you all are doing me a favor as much as I am doing you one." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he met her gaze steadily. "You are a surprising man, Isaac Logan." "I am really not. Just trying to do right, same as anybody." A scream from inside the house broke the moment. They both jumped up and rushed in to find Violet standing on a chair pointing at something under the kitchen cabinet. "Mouse. There is a mouse." Isaac could not help it. He laughed. After the tension of the day, the fear in the child's voice over something so small struck him as absurd and perfect at the same time. Josephine gave him a look, but her lips were twitching too. "It is all right, Violet. Mice are more scared of you than you are of them, but I will set some traps." "You will not hurt it, will you?" Daisy asked, distressed. "Just relocate it, promise." This satisfied the girls, and the crisis passed. But later, as Isaac lay in his unfamiliar downstairs bedroom listening to the sounds of the house settling and the soft voices of women upstairs, he thought about how his life had changed in the space of one afternoon. He had been alone, and now he was surrounded. It should have felt intrusive, but instead it felt right in a way he could not quite explain. The next morning came early. Isaac was used to rising before dawn, and he tried to be quiet as he made coffee and prepared to head out for morning chores. But when he came back inside an hour later, Josephine was up and had breakfast waiting. Eggs, bacon, and those incredible biscuits. "You did not have to do this," he said, but he was grateful nonetheless. "Old habits. I have been making breakfast for my family for 20 years. Hard to break the pattern." The girls came down in shifts, sleepy-eyed but polite. After breakfast, Josephine sent the younger ones outside to explore the property within sight of the house while she, Iris, and Lily cleaned up. "I need to head into town," Isaac said. "Check on mail and pick up a few things. You are welcome to come along if you want, see the place in daylight, maybe talk to Ed Morgan about that room." Josephine nodded. "That would be good. Iris can watch the girls." The ride into Rawhide took about 20 minutes. The town was small but growing, with a main street that boasted a general store, a saloon, a bank, a church, a boarding house, a hotel, a blacksmith, and various other businesses. It was rough around the edges like most frontier towns, but had aspirations of respectability. Isaac helped Josephine down from the wagon in front of the general store. Immediately, he saw curtains twitching in windows, faces appearing to observe the stranger. Small-town gossip worked faster than telegraph. Ed Morgan, who ran the store with his wife Ruth, greeted them with curiosity barely contained. "Isaac, and you must be Mrs. Barrett. Pete mentioned you had arrived." "News travels fast," Josephine said with a slight smile. "Only kind of entertainment we have out here besides watching paint dry," Ed said cheerfully. "Ruth, come meet our new neighbor." Ruth Morgan bustled out from the back, a plump woman with kind eyes and an assessing manner. "Oh my stars, you are just a slip of a thing to have 5 daughters. How are you managing? Are you staying at Isaac's place? That is very generous of him, very generous indeed." Isaac could see Josephine struggling with how to respond to the barrage of questions and observations. He stepped in. "Mrs. Barrett needs to know about the room upstairs, Ed." "When will it be ready?" "Well now, that is the thing. Turns out the roof is worse than I thought. Whole section needs replacing, not just patching. Going to be 3 weeks, maybe a month before it is livable." Josephine's face fell slightly, though she tried to hide it. "I see. Is there anywhere else?" "Boarding house is full, like Pete said. Hotel is expensive for long term. There is the widow Thompson, but she is ailing and cannot really take in boarders right now." Ruth tapped her chin thoughtfully. "Honestly, dear, your best option is to stay where you are. Isaac has the room and he is a perfect gentleman. Everybody knows that." I appreciate everyone's concern, but I do not want to be a burden." "Nonsense," Ruth declared. "You listen to me, honey. Life out here is hard, especially for women alone. When someone offers help, you take it and you make the best of it. That is how we survive. Isn't that right, Ed?" "Yes, dear," Ed said automatically, clearly having learned that agreeing with his wife was the path of least resistance. They spent the next hour in town, Isaac introducing Josephine to various people. The Reverend's wife, Clara Walsh, was particularly welcoming, immediately inviting the Barrett family to church on Sunday. Sheriff Brennan tipped his hat and said he was glad to have more respectable folks settling in the area. The schoolteacher, Miss Abigail Thornton, lit up at the mention of 5 school-aged girls and began discussing enrollment immediately. By the time they headed back to the ranch, Josephine looked overwhelmed but less anxious. Everyone was very kind. They are good people, mostly. There is always a few troublemakers, but nothing like what you might find in bigger towns. Rawhide is trying to be civilized. And you? How did you end up here? Came from Kansas originally. Family farm there, but I was the youngest son and there was not enough land for all of us to make a living. Heard about the Homestead Act, figured I would try my luck. Worked for a couple years saving money, then filed my claim. Been here ever since. Do you miss Kansas? Sometimes. I miss my family, but this is home now. I have built something here that is mine. That means something. When they returned to the ranch, they found the girls had been busy. The younger ones had picked wildflowers and put them in jars around the house. Iris had swept the porch. Lily had found Isaac's neglected vegetable garden and started weeding it. Rose was attempting to befriend one of the barn cats. "Look at you all, industrious as bees," Josephine said with obvious pleasure. "Mr. Logan is going to think we are trying to take over." "Just Isaac is fine, madam, and I do not mind a bit. Place looks better already." That evening, after another excellent supper, this time a stew that had been simmering all afternoon, Isaac found himself on the porch again with Josephine. It was becoming a habit, this evening talk, and he realized he looked forward to it. "The girls seem to be settling in," he observed. "They are resilient. Children usually are, though I worry about Iris sometimes. She had to grow up too fast these past months, helping me hold everything together. She is protective of you all. Nothing wrong with that." "No, but she should be thinking about her own future, not managing her mother's troubles. She had a young man back in Ohio, a nice boy named Thomas. But when everything fell apart, his family made it clear he should not continue the association. Too much scandal, not enough prospects." Bitterness crept into her voice. "That is when I knew we had to leave. Start somewhere fresh where we were not defined by debt and death. People here will not judge you for that. Half the folks in Wyoming are running from something or towards something, sometimes both at once. What about you? Are you running or seeking? Maybe a bit of both. Running from the feeling of being stuck, seeking something that feels like purpose." He rocked slowly, choosing his words. "Can I ask you something personal? You have opened your home to us. I think that earns you some latitude. Do you want to stay in Wyoming? Or is this just a stopping point until you can get back to somewhere more settled?" Josephine was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the darkening prairie. "Honestly, I do not know yet. I came here because I had to go somewhere, and my cousin made it sound possible to build a life. But I have not figured out how yet. I can teach, but I do not know if Rawhide needs another teacher. I can sew, cook, manage a household. I am not afraid of work. But what kind of work can support 5 daughters? There is always need for teachers as more families settle. Miss Thornton might welcome help, or you could start something on your own, maybe teaching piano or art or etiquette. Women here want their daughters to have refinement even on the frontier, and there is always washing, mending, baking. Ruth Morgan mentioned she could use help at the store during busy times. You have given this thought. I've given everything about your situation too much thought, probably. Hazard of having quiet time to think. She smiled at that, a real smile that transformed her face. You are a kind man, Isaac Logan. I think perhaps your Sarah was a fool. He blinked in surprise. How did you know about Sarah? Ruth Morgan is very informative when she wants to be. She told me the whole story while you were talking to the sheriff. I think she wanted me to know you were available and that I should not worry about any existing attachments. Ruth is a romantic who sees matchmaking potential in every situation. I would not read too much into it. Of course not. But Josephine's smile lingered, and Isaac felt something stir in his chest that had been dormant for a long time. The days began to fall into a pattern. Isaac would rise early, do morning chores, come in for breakfast that Josephine always had ready. The girls would help with various tasks around the ranch, exploring their temporary home with increasing confidence. Iris proved to have a way with horses, spending hours in the barn. Lily started sketching the landscape, capturing the rolling prairie and big sky with surprising skill. Rose convinced Isaac to teach her to ride, and he spent patient afternoons leading her around on his gentlest mare. Violet organized her rock collection with scientific precision. Daisy helped her mother in the house, always underfoot but cheerful about it. In the evenings, there would be supper and conversation. Then the younger girls would go to bed while Iris and Lily stayed up a bit later. And always, Isaac and Josephine found their way to the porch for those quiet talks that felt increasingly intimate despite the careful distance they maintained. A week passed, then two. Sunday church became a routine, the Barrett women fitting into the small congregation easily. Josephine began helping Miss Thornton at the school twice a week, teaching literature and music. Ruth Morgan hired her for 3 afternoons at the store. Money started coming in, small amounts but enough to contribute to household expenses as Josephine had insisted. Isaac found himself thinking about her at odd moments. The way she laughed at something Daisy said, her head thrown back unselfconsciously. The competent way she handled everything from a difficult recipe to a scraped knee. The sadness that sometimes crossed her face when she thought no one was watching, grief for her husband still raw. The strength it took to uproot everything and start over for the sake of her daughters. He was falling for her, he realized one evening as he watched her play a clapping game with Violet. It had crept up on him gradual, this feeling, until it was undeniable. But what could he do about it? She was still in mourning, still piecing her life back together. And he was just the man providing temporary shelter. She had given no indication she thought of him as anything more. The 4th week brought trouble in the form of 3 men riding up to the ranch while Isaac was out checking fence lines. Josephine heard horses and came out to the porch, wiping flour from her hands. Iris appeared beside her immediately, sensing something wrong. The men were rough-looking, the kind who hired on for seasonal ranch work and caused problems in saloons. The leader, a big man with a scarred face and mean eyes, looked Josephine up and down in a way that made her skin crawl. Well now, what do we have here? Heard there was a widow and a bunch of girls staying at the Logan place. Wanted to see for ourselves. You have seen. Now you can leave. Mr. Logan will be back soon. Josephine kept her voice steady though her heart was pounding. Maybe we will wait for him. Maybe we will come in and have some of whatever smells so good cooking in there. You will not. Iris stepped forward, and Josephine saw she was holding the rifle Isaac kept by the door. The girl had it trained on the men with surprising steadiness. You will turn around and ride off this property right now. The man laughed. Little girl playing with a gun. That is dangerous. I know how to use it. My father taught me. Now leave." Something in Iris's eyes must have convinced them she was serious, or maybe they decided it was not worth the trouble. The leader shrugged. "Just being neighborly. No need to get hostile. But you should tell Logan that a pretty woman like you should not be alone out here. Never know who might come calling." They rode off laughing, and as soon as they were out of sight, Iris lowered the rifle with shaking hands. Josephine pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. "You were so brave. But also please never do anything that dangerous again." They were not going to leave, Mama. I could see it in their eyes. When Isaac returned an hour later, Josephine told him what happened. His face went dark with anger. That was Wade Garrett and his crew. They work for the Double R Ranch when they are not drinking or gambling. I will have words with Sheriff Brennan. It is fine. They left. No harm done. It is not fine. You should not have to deal with men like that, especially not here. He looked at Iris. You did right standing up to them. But your mother is right too. Those are the kind of men who might have called your bluff, and then things could have gone bad fast. That evening, Isaac taught both Josephine and Iris to properly shoot the rifle and his pistol. He wanted them to be able to defend themselves if he was not there. The lesson was sobering, a reminder that the frontier was still wild, still dangerous, especially for women alone. But it also brought Isaac and Josephine physically closer than they had been, his arms around her as he showed her the proper stance, his hands guiding hers on the pistol. He could smell the lavender soap she used, feel the warmth of her body against his. When their eyes met after she successfully hit the target, something passed between them that was undeniable. That night on the porch, the air between them was charged with new awareness. "I have been thinking," Isaac said slowly, "about your situation, my situation. You cannot stay here indefinitely. People are already talking even though nothing improper is happening, and you need something more permanent, more stable for the girls." Josephine's face fell. "Of course. You have been more than generous. We will figure something out. Maybe the room above the store is ready now." "That is not what I mean." Isaac turned to face her fully. "Josephine, I know this is sudden. I know you are still grieving your husband, but I have to say something before I lose my nerve." She waited, her blue eyes wide in the dim light. "I have come to care for you these past weeks, more than care for you. I admire your strength, your grace, the way you love your daughters. I enjoy your company more than I have enjoyed anything in years. This house feels like a home now when it was just a building before." He took a breath. "I know about propriety and mourning periods and doing things the proper way. But out here, sometimes we have to make our own rules. So I am asking if you would consider, eventually when you are ready, marrying me." Josephine sat frozen, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched so long Isaac began to think he had made a terrible mistake. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Isaac, I do not know what to say. You can say no, you can say you need time, you can say anything. I just needed you to know how I feel. It has only been 4 weeks. I know. And I am not asking for an answer tonight or even next week. I am just asking you to think about it. I can provide for you and the girls. I have land, a house, prospects. But more than that, I promise I would do everything in my power to make you happy, to give all of you a good life. And if I cannot love you the way you deserve, my heart is still so broken. Then we would figure it out together. I am not asking for grand passion right away. I am asking for a chance for partnership. Love can grow. It has been growing in me already." Tears slipped down Josephine's cheeks. "You are offering me everything I need. Security, safety, a father for my girls. It is incredibly generous, but I cannot say yes just for practical reasons. That would not be fair to you. I am not asking you to. I am asking you to consider whether, given time, you could see me as more than just the man who helped you. If there is any possibility that what I feel might eventually be returned." She reached out and took his hand, the first time they had touched outside the shooting lesson. "I will think about it. That is all I can promise right now. That is all I am asking." They sat holding hands in the darkness, and something had shifted irrevocably between them. The easy friendship was still there, but now it was complicated by possibility, by hope, by fear. The next few days were slightly awkward as they both navigated this new dynamic. But the routines continued. Breakfast, work, supper, porch time. The girls seemed oblivious to any change, wrapped up in their own adjustments and discoveries. Then one afternoon, Lily came running into the house calling for her mother. Josephine was helping Isaac with account books, both of them carefully maintaining appropriate distance at the table. "Mama, come quick." Rose fell from the fence. They rushed outside to find Rose sitting on the ground by the corral, holding her arm and crying. Isaac knelt beside her immediately. "Where does it hurt, sweetheart?" "My arm. I was trying to pet the tall horse and I slipped." Gently, Isaac examined her arm. It was not at an odd angle, but it was already swelling. "I think it might be broken. We need to get her to Doc Harrison in town." "I will get the wagon ready," Josephine said, her voice tight with worry. "No, I will ride in with her. It will be faster. You stay with the others." But Josephine was already shaking her head. "She is my daughter. I am coming." In the end, Isaac rode with Rose carefully cradled in front of him while Josephine followed on another horse, managing it well despite her limited experience. Iris stayed behind with the younger girls, looking worried but capable. Doc Harrison confirmed the arm was broken, set it, and put it in a splint. Rose was brave through the whole thing, crying only a little. On the ride home, Josephine rode beside Isaac, still shaky with worry. She could have been hurt so much worse, she said, but she was not. Broken bones heal. She will be fine. I keep thinking about all the things that could go wrong. Disease, accidents, dangerous men. How do I keep them safe out here? The same way parents everywhere keep children safe. You do your best and trust in God and luck. Josephine, you are doing an amazing job. Your daughters are happy, healthy, adjusting better than anyone could expect. Do not let one accident make you doubt yourself. How did you get so wise? Years of making mistakes and learning from them. I am not wise, just experienced in being wrong. That made her laugh and the tension eased. When they got home, the other girls swarmed Rose with attention and sympathy. Iris had made cookies, which made Rose feel immediately better. The crisis passed into just another part of life. That evening, Josephine found Isaac in the barn checking on the horses. "I have been thinking about what you asked me," she said without preamble. His heart started beating faster. "And I am scared. I cared for John deeply. He was my first love, the father of my children. When he died, I thought I would never want anyone else, never be able to open my heart again. It felt like betrayal to even consider it. I understand. But these weeks here, watching you with my daughters, seeing how you live your life with such quiet integrity, I have felt something awakening that I thought was dead. Not just gratitude, though I am grateful. Not just relief at finding security, though that is part of it. I find myself thinking about you when we are apart, looking forward to our evening talks, noticing things like how your eyes crinkle when you smile or how patient you are when teaching Violet about the ranch." Isaac hardly dared breathe, afraid to break the moment. "I do not know if I can love you the way I love John. That was a different time, a different life. But I think I could love you in a new way, something built on friendship and respect and shared purpose. If you are willing to be patient while I figure out my heart." "I can be patient." "Then my answer is yes. Not tomorrow, but eventually. When my mourning period is properly over, when the girls have adjusted more, 6 months from now maybe, or a year. But yes, Isaac Logan, I will marry you." He stepped forward and took both her hands in his. "I will wait as long as you need, and I will do everything I can to make you never regret this choice. I know you will. That is why I am saying yes." They stood there in the barn, horses shifting in their stalls around them, and Isaac felt happiness bloom in his chest like he had never known. He wanted to kiss her, but he held back, sensing she was not ready for that yet. Instead, he lifted her hands and kissed her knuckles gently, a promise of more to come. Word spread through Rawhide that the widow Barrett and Isaac Logan were engaged, though with a long engagement out of respect for her late husband. The town seemed universally pleased, with women stopping Josephine at church to offer congratulations and men clapping Isaac on the back. Even the girls seemed happy, especially the younger ones who had grown attached to Isaac. Only Iris seemed uncertain. One day she approached Isaac while he was mending fence. "Can I talk to you, sir?" "Of course. And you can call me Isaac. We are going to be family." "That is what I want to talk about. Are you marrying my mother because you love her, or because you feel obligated? Because you think you have to take care of us?" He set down his tools and gave her his full attention. "That is a fair question, and you deserve an honest answer. I am marrying your mother because I love her, and because I believe we can build a good life together. The fact that you and your sisters are part of that package is not an obligation to me. It is a blessing. I always wanted a family, Iris. A full house with noise and life and purpose. You all give me that. But 5 daughters at once, that is a lot. It is. And I am probably going to make mistakes. I am not your father, and I would never try to replace him. But I can be someone who cares about you, who wants the best for you, who will do everything in my power to help you all have good futures." Iris studied him for a long moment. "My father was not perfect. He loved us, but he made bad choices with money, with business. Mama had to fix everything after he died, had to be strong when all she wanted to do was fall apart. I need to know you are not going to put her through that again. That you are solid and steady and will be here. I cannot promise nothing will ever go wrong. Life does not work that way. But I can promise I will never gamble with your security, will always put your family first, and will never leave except if I am carried out feet first. Your mother and you girls deserve stability. I aim to provide it." Something in Iris's face softened. "All right then. You have my blessing for what it is worth. It is worth everything. You are her oldest, her protector. I would not come into this family against your wishes." From that day forward, Iris's wariness faded, replaced by a cautious acceptance that gradually turned into genuine affection. She started calling him Isaac naturally, helped him with ranch work, and one day he caught her describing him to someone in town as her soon-to-be stepfather with something like pride in her voice. As autumn approached, the rhythm of life at the ranch became natural as breathing. The garden produced vegetables that Josephine preserved for winter. The cattle fattened up nicely. Isaac hired a hand named Tommy Burns to help with the heavier work, and the young man proved reliable and respectful around the women. Josephine continued teaching and working at the store, building her own small nest egg. The girls enrolled properly in school and thrived. Rose's arm healed straight and strong. Violet started a rock collection that took over half her room. Daisy made friends with several town children. Lily's drawings began to be noticed, with people offering to pay her for sketches. Iris started stepping out occasionally with a young rancher named Samuel Porter, and while it was early days yet, Isaac could see the boy was smitten and respectful. Through it all, Isaac and Josephine grew closer. They moved from holding hands to brief embraces, to stolen moments of real affection when the girls were not watching. The mourning period would officially end in November, and they planned a simple wedding for December, giving the girls time to fully adjust to the idea of a new family configuration. One October evening, they sat on the porch wrapped in blankets against the cooling air. The cottonwoods along the creek had turned gold, and the prairie grass was taking on autumn colors. "I have been thinking about the future," Josephine said. "About what comes after we are married." "What about it? The girls will grow up eventually, make their own lives. Iris might marry Samuel if things continue as they are going. The others will find their paths, and then it will just be us." "That is generally how it works, yes. Would you want more children, with me?" Isaac turned to look at her, surprised by the question. "I would not object to it if it happened, but I am not expecting it. You have already raised 5 daughters. If you are done with babies and sleepless nights, I would understand that completely." "I am 31. I have a few years left where it would be possible. And I think I would like to have your child if we are blessed that way. A new beginning for both of us. Then we will see what the Lord provides and be grateful either way." She smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture that had become comfortable between them. "I am happy, Isaac. I did not think I would ever be happy again, but I am. So am I. You all gave me something I did not even know I was missing." November came cold and clear. The mourning period ended, and Josephine put away her black dresses for normal colors. The change in her was visible, as if she had been carrying a heavy weight that was finally lifted. She laughed more easily, sang while she worked, allowed herself to relax into the life they were building. The wedding was planned for the second Saturday in December at the church in Rawhide. It would be small and simple, just family and close friends. Josephine made her own dress, a practical but pretty blue that brought out her eyes. The girls would stand with them, and Tommy Burns agreed to be Isaac's best man since his brothers were too far away to make the journey. A week before the wedding, a late-season storm rolled in, dropping 6 inches of snow and dropping temperatures below freezing. Isaac worked long hours making sure the cattle were sheltered and fed, coming in each night exhausted and half-frozen. Josephine would have hot food and warmer clothes ready, would help him thaw out by the fire. "You are going to work yourself to death before the wedding," she scolded gently. "Just being careful. Cannot afford to lose cattle right now. Need to build up the herd if I am going to support this family properly. We will manage regardless. We always have. I want to do better than manage. I want to give you and the girls everything you need and some things you do not need but would enjoy. Isaac Logan, look at me." She took his face in her hands. "You have already given us everything that matters. A home, security, kindness, love. The rest is just details." He kissed her then properly for the first time. It started gentle but deepened as weeks of restraint and longing poured out. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "I have been wanting to do that for weeks," he admitted. "Why did you not?" Trying to be respectful. "Move at your pace." "My pace just sped up considerably." She kissed him again, and this time there was no hesitation from either of them. A pointed cough from the stairs made them spring apart to find Iris standing there trying not to smile. "Sorry to interrupt, but Daisy had a nightmare and is asking for you, Mama." "Of course." Josephine stood, smoothing her hair. "We will continue this conversation later, Mr. Logan. Looking forward to it, Mrs. Barrett." After she left, Iris lingered. "I am glad you two are not holding back anymore. It was getting painful to watch all that polite restraint. Were we that obvious? Only to everyone with eyes. You have been looking at each other like you are drowning and the other person is air. It is actually pretty romantic in an awkward sort of way." Isaac laughed. "When did you get so wise about romance?" "I have been reading Mama's novels when she is not looking. Very educational." She started up the stairs, then paused. "Isaac, thank you for loving her, for loving all of us. We were lost when we came here, and you gave us a place to land. I am the one who should be thanking you. You all made this place a home." The wedding day arrived clear and cold, the world covered in fresh snow that made everything look clean and new. Isaac stood at the front of the small church, watching as Josephine came down the aisle on Iris's arm since there was no father to give her away. She was beautiful in her blue dress with her hair swept up, but more than that, she was radiant with happiness. Reverend Walsh kept the ceremony simple and heartfelt, speaking about second chances and blended families, and the courage it took to open one's heart after loss. When it came time for vows, they had written their own. Isaac spoke first, his voice steady despite his nerves. "Josephine, when you arrived with your 5 daughters, I said I always wanted a full house. What I did not know was that I had been living in an empty shell until you all filled it with life and love. I promised to honor you, to cherish you, to be a good husband to you and a good father to your daughters. I promise to build a life with you that honors where you have been while looking forward to where we are going. I promise to love you for all my days." Josephine's voice shook slightly, but her eyes were clear. "Isaac, you offered us shelter when we were desperate, but you gave us so much more than a roof. You gave us safety, stability, and eventually love. I promise to be a good wife to you, a good partner in building our life together. I promise to honor the gift you have given my daughters in accepting them as your own. I promise to love you with a whole heart, even though I thought my heart was too broken to love again. You proved me wrong, and I am so grateful for that." They exchanged simple gold bands, and when Reverend Walsh pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac kissed his bride thoroughly enough that the girls giggled and the congregation applauded. The reception was held at the boarding house dining room, with the whole town invited. There was food and music and dancing. Isaac danced with his new wife, with each of his new daughters, with half the women in town. Josephine glowed with happiness, finally allowing herself to fully embrace this new chapter. As the party wound down and they prepared to head home, people kept making jokes about wedding nights and privacy. Isaac felt his face heat, knowing that 5 daughters in the house made privacy challenging. But he and Josephine had talked about it, agreeing there was no rush, that they had their whole lives ahead of them. That night, after the girls were all in bed, Isaac and Josephine sat together in what was now truly their bedroom. They had moved her things into his downstairs room, creating a space that was theirs together. "So, Mrs. Logan, how does it feel to be married again?" "Strange." "Good, but strange. Part of me feels guilty, like I am betraying John's memory. But mostly I feel happy, like I am allowed to move forward finally. John would want you to be happy, to be cared for. Any man who loved you would want that. I think so too." She looked around the room at the way her belongings had mingled with his. "This is real now. We are a family. We have been a family for months. This just makes it official." They talked for a long time about hopes and fears, about practical matters of combining their lives, about the future they would build. And later, when talking faded into other forms of communication, it felt right and natural and like a promise being kept. Winter settled in hard, with storms that kept them close to the house for days at a time. But inside, the house was warm and full of life. The girls adjusted to calling Isaac their stepfather, though the younger ones sometimes just called him Papa, which made him unexpectedly emotional every time. Christmas was a revelation. Isaac had never celebrated with much fanfare when he lived alone, but Josephine and the girls transformed the house with handmade decorations, pine boughs, and festive cooking. There were modest gifts exchanged, nothing expensive but all thoughtful. Isaac gave each girl something chosen specifically for her interests. For Josephine, he had commissioned a locket from the jeweler in Cheyenne, with space for 6 photos, one for each of her daughters and one for him. When she opened it and saw what it was, tears streamed down her face. "It is perfect. How did you know?" "Because I pay attention, and because I know your heart has room for all of us." The new year of 1879 brought changes and growth. The ranch prospered. Isaac bought more cattle, expanded his operation. Tommy Burns proved so valuable that Isaac made him a partner in a small way, giving him a stake in the success of the ranch. Josephine's teaching income increased as she took on more students for private lessons. The girls continued to thrive. In February, Josephine began feeling ill in the mornings. At first, she thought it was just a stomach ailment, but when it persisted, Doc Harrison confirmed what she had begun to suspect. She was pregnant. Isaac's reaction when she told him was everything she could have hoped for. Pure joy mixed with concern for her health, protectiveness toward her and the baby, and a little fear about doing it all right. "I am going to be a father," he kept saying, as if he could not quite believe it. "An actual father. You already are a father to 5 daughters. You know what I mean. This is different, new, ours together. Are you happy about it?" Happy does not begin to cover it. Terrified, elated, overwhelmed, but mostly just grateful. "Thank you for this gift." The girls reacted with excitement when told they would have a new sibling in the fall. Even Iris, now seriously courting Samuel, was thrilled. They all immediately began planning and preparing, arguing about names, discussing what sex they hoped the baby would be. "I hope it is a boy," Violet declared. "We have too many girls already." "There is no such thing as too many girls," Lily countered, "but a boy would be interesting." "I want another sister," Daisy said firmly. "Boys are messy." "All children are messy, sweet girl," Josephine said with amusement. "We will love whatever the Lord sends us." As spring arrived and the snow melted, revealing the greening prairie beneath, Isaac stood outside watching his cattle graze and thought about how dramatically his life had changed in less than a year. From solitary rancher to husband and father of 5 about to be 6. It was dizzying when he thought about it too directly. Josephine came out to join him, moving more slowly now as the pregnancy advanced. He immediately offered his arm, which she took with a grateful smile. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About how I complained that my house was too quiet. Be careful what you wish for, right? Regrets? Not a single one. This is everything I wanted without knowing I wanted it. You gave me that. We gave it to each other. I was lost, Isaac. Completely adrift with 5 daughters and no idea how to provide for them, how to move forward. You were my anchor. And you were my purpose. I was just going through motions before, building something but not sure why. Now I know. It was all for this. For you and the girls and the family we are making." In June, Iris married Samuel Porter in a happy ceremony that had her sisters as bridesmaids and Isaac proudly walking her down the aisle. Giving away his stepdaughter felt momentous, like a full circle from that day 9 months ago when they all arrived in his life. Samuel had a small ranch adjoining Isaac's property, and the newlyweds built a house close enough that Iris could visit her family regularly. "You will always have a home here," Isaac told her the night before the wedding. "No matter what happens, you are my daughter and this is your home. I know, and thank you for that, for accepting us all so completely." She hugged him tightly. "I could not have asked for a better stepfather. I could not have asked for better daughters." Summer was hot and long, and Josephine grew heavy with the baby. Doc Harrison said everything looked healthy and normal, but Isaac worried constantly. He had seen enough of life on the frontier to know that childbirth was dangerous, that women and babies died despite everyone's best efforts. The thought of losing Josephine terrified him in a way he had never been terrified before. She caught him brooding one evening and took his hand. "I am going to be fine. This is my 6th baby. I know what to expect. That does not make it less scary. No, but it should reassure you that I have done this before successfully. Have faith." "I do. I just also worry. I am good at worrying. I have noticed." She kissed his cheek. "But save your energy. You will need it when the baby arrives and you are not sleeping." In early September, on a clear morning when the air already held the first hint of autumn coolness, Josephine's pain started. Doc Harrison was summoned, along with Ruth Morgan and several other experienced women from town. Isaac was banished from the bedroom along with the girls, sent to wait anxiously in the main room. The hours stretched endlessly. He paced, he prayed, he tried to keep the girls distracted and calm even though he was neither. Lily made tea nobody drank. Rose tried to read but kept losing her place. Violet organized her rocks for the 100th time. Daisy clung to Isaac's hand, needing reassurance. Finally, as the sun was setting, a baby's cry rang out strong and healthy. Ruth emerged from the bedroom, smiling widely. "You have a son, Isaac, and Josephine is doing just fine, tired but fine." The relief was so intense he felt dizzy. A son, a beautiful, healthy boy. "You can go in and meet him." Isaac entered the bedroom with trembling legs. Josephine lay in the bed, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle. When she saw him, her smile was brilliant. "Come meet your son." He approached slowly, almost reverently. The baby was small and red and perfect, with a surprising amount of dark hair. As Isaac looked at him, he felt his heart expand in a way he had not expected. This was his son, his blood, a new life he had helped create. "He is perfect," Isaac whispered, afraid to speak too loudly. "You are amazing." "Thank you. What should we name him? We never did quite decide." They had discussed names but never settled on one. Now, looking at his son, Isaac knew, "James, after your father, James Logan." Tears filled Josephine's eyes. "Papa would have loved that. Yes, James." "Welcome to the world, little James." The girls crowded in then, eager to meet their new brother. Daisy declared him the most beautiful baby ever. Violet wanted to know when he could play. Rose thought he looked like a little bird. Lily immediately started planning to draw his portrait. Even stoic Isaac found himself blinking back tears at the picture they all made. His whole family gathered around the newest member. The months after James's birth were exhausting but joyful. Isaac discovered that babies were far more work than he had anticipated, but he threw himself into fatherhood with enthusiasm. He changed nappies, walked the floor with a colicky infant at 2 in the morning, sang terrible off-key lullabies. Josephine watched him with amusement and love, appreciating how fully he committed to being a present father. "You are going to spoil him," she warned as Isaac rocked their son for the 3rd time in an hour. "Impossible to spoil a baby. He is learning that the world is a safe place and we are here for him." "Where did you learn that philosophy?" "Made it up." "Sounds good though, right?" James thrived, growing chubby and happy. The girls were endlessly helpful, taking turns entertaining their little brother, helping with his care. The house was louder than ever, and Isaac loved every chaotic moment. As winter approached again, bringing with it the anniversary of their wedding, Isaac reflected on the past year. It had been full and rich and sometimes overwhelming, but he would not change a single thing. On their anniversary, after the children were all in bed, Isaac and Josephine sat by the fire in their bedroom, listening to the wind howl outside. "A year ago today," Josephine said softly. "Can you believe it? Feels like a lifetime and also like yesterday. We have been blessed. Sometimes I worry it is too good, that something will go wrong. Nothing is going to go wrong. We are going to keep building this life together, watching the children grow, growing old together." You sound very sure. I am sure. I am sure about you, about us, about this family. It is the one thing in life I have no doubts about. She shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. James made soft, sleeping sounds from his cradle across the room. The house creaked and settled around them, solid and warm. I love you, Isaac Logan. I did not think I could love again, but you made it possible. You made everything possible. I love you too. And I meant what I said that first day, even though it was a terrible joke. I always wanted a full house, and you gave me exactly that. Spring of 1880 brought new challenges and opportunities. The ranch continued to expand. Isaac bought another 100 acres from a neighbor who was retiring. Iris announced she was expecting her first child, making Josephine and Isaac grandparents at 32 and 36, respectively. Lily's artistic talents led to a commission to illustrate a book about Wyoming wildlife. Rose started teaching riding lessons to children in town. Violet became fascinated with astronomy and spent evenings studying the stars. Daisy, now 10, declared she wanted to be a veterinarian, one of only a handful of women in the country pursuing that path. Through it all, James grew from infant to toddler, curious and energetic. He followed Isaac everywhere when he could, trying to help with ranch work in the clumsy way of small children. Isaac was endlessly patient, letting the boy hand him tools, ride in front of him on the horse, learn the rhythms of ranch life. One evening in late summer, Isaac sat on the porch with James on his lap while Josephine tended to something in the kitchen. The older girls were scattered, doing their various activities. The sun was setting in a spectacular display of orange and purple. "Papa," James said, his vocabulary expanding daily. "Big sky." "Sure is, buddy, big sky, big land. It is all going to be yours someday, you and your sisters, our legacy." The boy did not understand, of course, but he smiled anyway, content to sit with his father and watch the day end. Josephine came out and joined them, sliding naturally into Isaac's free arm. "This is perfect," she said. "Right here, right now, this is everything I could ever want." "Agreed. Though we are probably due for some chaos. James has been quiet for at least 10 minutes. As if on cue, a crash from inside the house was followed by Violet's voice calling, "Mama!" Rose knocked over the bookshelf. "I did not mean to," Rose protested. "Lily bumped me." Isaac and Josephine looked at each other and started laughing. "There it is," he said, "the chaos." "Would not have it any other way," she replied, rising to go deal with whatever disaster awaited inside. Isaac sat a moment longer with his son, breathing in the evening air, listening to the sounds of his family, his wife's voice calm and authoritative as she sorted out the situation inside. His cattle were healthy, his land productive, his family thriving. The loneliness that had defined his life for so long was a distant memory. When Josephine arrived with 5 daughters over 2 years ago, he had made a flip comment about wanting a full house. He had not realized he was making a prophecy, calling into being the exact life he needed even if he had not known he needed it. A full house was not just about numbers, he understood now. It was about hearts and connections, and the beautiful mess of people loving each other through good times and hard times. It was about second chances and new beginnings. It was about a widow finding hope and a cowboy finding purpose. It was about family, in all its complicated, wonderful forms. Years passed in the way years do, sometimes slow and sometimes breathtakingly fast. The ranch prospered beyond what Isaac had imagined possible. With Tommy as a true partner and Samuel's ranch adjacent, they formed a cooperative that gave them better negotiating power with buyers. The Logan Ranch, as it became known, developed a reputation for quality cattle and fair dealing. Iris had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and brought them often to visit their grandparents and aunts and uncle. Lily moved to Denver to pursue her art seriously, but came home several times a year. Rose married a neighboring rancher and stayed close, their properties forming a connected community. Violet earned a scholarship to a women's college in the East to study science, writing long letters home about her studies. Daisy remained determined to become a veterinarian, apprenticing with the local farrier and animal doctor, while studying everything she could find about animal medicine. James grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved the ranch life as much as his father did. By the time he was 8, he was Isaac's constant shadow, learning everything about running the operation. Isaac taught him not just the practical skills but the values that mattered: integrity, hard work, treating people fairly, taking care of the land, and always making family the priority. Josephine continued teaching, becoming a cornerstone of the Rawhide community. She started a lending library, organized social events, mentored young women who came west seeking better lives. Her own story of arriving alone with 5 daughters and building a new life made her a symbol of resilience and hope. People sought her advice, her wisdom, her calm presence in crisis. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Isaac surprised Josephine with a trip, just the two of them, to Denver for a week. It was the first time they had been alone together for more than a few hours since the early days of their marriage. Iris and Samuel agreed to watch James, and the other girls were old enough to manage themselves. "I feel strange leaving them," Josephine said as they boarded the train. "They will be fine, and we deserve some time just for us." Denver was a revelation. They stayed in a real hotel, ate in restaurants, saw plays and concerts, walked the streets like any normal couple without the constant responsibility of children. It was wonderful, but by the end of the week, they were both eager to get home. "As nice as this has been," Josephine said on the train ride back, "I miss our life. Is that strange? Not at all. I miss it too. Miss the noise and chaos and knowing what everybody is up to. We built something good, you and I. We did." She took his hand, lacing their fingers together. "Better than I ever imagined possible. Thank you for taking a chance on a desperate widow and her 5 daughters. Thank you for letting me be part of your family. You gave me everything, Josephine. Everything that matters." When they arrived home, they were greeted by 6 excited children and grandchildren, all talking at once about what had happened while they were gone. The house was exactly as chaotic as they remembered, and Isaac could not have been happier. That night, after everyone else had gone to bed, Isaac and Josephine sat on their porch like they had so many times over the years. The stars were brilliant in the clear Wyoming sky. A coyote called in the distance. The house behind them was full of sleeping family, solid and safe. "Do you remember that first night?" Josephine asked. "When we sat out here and you offered to let us stay? I remember thinking my quiet life was over. Regrets? Never. That was the beginning of my real life. Everything before was just preparation." She smiled and leaned against him. "I was so scared that day. Exhausted, desperate, trying to be strong for the girls but feeling like I was drowning. And then there was you, this unexpected harbor in the storm. You were not looking for a harbor. You were looking for a boarding house. Maybe, but I found something better. I found home. We found home." Isaac wrapped his arm around his wife, his partner, his love. In the house behind them, their sons slept peacefully. Across the valley, their daughters lived their lives. The ranch that had once felt empty now pulsed with life and purpose. The cowboy had indeed gotten his full house, and it was more than he ever could have asked for. Not just full, but overflowing with love, laughter, challenges, and joy. As they sat together in the darkness, Isaac thought about that moment 2.5 years ago when a stagecoach rolled up carrying a widow and 5 daughters, and how his instinct to help had changed everything. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness grew into the biggest blessings. Sometimes what looked like obligation turned into love. Sometimes strangers became family in the span of a heartbeat. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you got to spend your life with the person who saw you for who you really were and loved you anyway. Who let you be their strength when they needed it and was your strength when you needed it. Who built something beautiful with you out of hope and hard work and stubborn faith in better days. "Come on," Josephine said eventually, rising and offering her hand. "It is late and tomorrow will be busy." Tomorrow is always busy. I would not have it any other way. They went inside together, checked on James one last time, and retired to their room. As Isaac drifted off to sleep with his wife in his arms, his last thought was simple gratitude for stagecoaches that arrived at the right moment, for full houses and second chances, for widows and cowboys and the unexpected families they built together in the wild, beautiful West. The years continued their steady march. James grew into a young man of 16 with his father's steady temperament and his mother's intelligence. He ran much of the ranch operation by then, having learned everything Isaac could teach him. He talked about expanding into horse breeding, and Isaac supported the idea, proud of his son's vision and ambition. Iris's children were nearly grown themselves now, her eldest son already married. Lily had made a name for herself as an artist, her western scenes sought after by collectors back east. Rose's ranch was thriving. Violet had earned her degree and was teaching at a women's college in California, though she wrote faithfully every week. Daisy, at 20, had managed to find a veterinary school that would accept a woman, and was making her way through the rigorous program with characteristic determination. Josephine, at 43, had gone gray at the temples but remained vibrant and active. She still taught, still ran half the town's social programs, still kept Isaac on his toes with her wit and wisdom. The years had only made her more beautiful in his eyes, had deepened their connection until sometimes they did not need words to communicate. Isaac, at 48, felt the years in his joints some mornings, especially when weather was coming in. But he was healthy and strong, capable of a full day's work. He had accomplished what he set out to do all those years ago, built something lasting on this land, created a legacy for his children, made a life that mattered. One spring evening in 1886, the whole family gathered at the ranch for Josephine's birthday. All the daughters were there with their families, creating wonderful chaos as children ran around and adults caught up. The house was filled to bursting, exactly as it should be. After dinner, after the cake and presents and singing, after the older grandchildren had been settled in various beds and corners, the adults sat on the expanded porch Isaac had built to accommodate these gatherings. The conversation flowed easily, stories and laughter, the comfortable interaction of people who genuinely loved each other. Iris raised her glass. "I want to make a toast. To Mama, obviously on her birthday. But also to Isaac, who took in 5 strange girls and their desperate mother 8 years ago and gave us all a future. We would not be here, any of us, without his kindness that day." "Hear, hear," the others echoed, raising their glasses. Isaac felt his face heat with embarrassment. "I did not do anything special, just offered what I had." "That was exactly what made it special," Rose said. "You gave without expecting anything back. You could have sent us on our way, told us to figure it out ourselves, but you did not. I got the better end of that deal, believe me." A quiet ranch became a home. Josephine took his hand and squeezed. "We saved each other," she said softly. "That is the truth of it. I needed safety and shelter, and you needed family and purpose. It was never one-sided. Later, much later, after everyone had finally gone to sleep in whatever space they could claim, Isaac and Josephine slipped out to the porch alone. The night was warm for spring, promising an early summer. "What a wonderful day," Josephine said. "Having everyone here, seeing how they have all grown and built their own lives. This is what it was all for. You raised good daughters. They are all strong, independent, making their marks on the world. You should be proud. We raised them. You were as much their father as I was their mother. Maybe not by blood for most of them, but in every way that matters. I love them like they are my blood. From Iris to Daisy, they are my daughters, just as much as James is my son. I know. They know it too. That is why this worked, Isaac, because you never treated them as obligations or burdens. You embraced them as gifts." He pulled her close, and they swayed slightly, dancing to music only they could hear. 8 years married, and he was still discovering new depths to his love for this woman. She had given him everything: family, purpose, joy. She had taken a lonely cowboy and made him a husband, a father, a grandfather. She had filled his empty house not just with people but with love. "If I could go back," he said quietly, "to that day when Pete's stagecoach rolled up, knowing everything that would happen, all the work and worry and occasional heartache, I would still make the same choice without hesitation. So would I. Coming here was terrifying, but it was the right thing. You were the right thing. This life is the right thing." They stood together on the porch of the house that had seen so much life, so much love, and watched the stars wheel overhead. In the morning, the house would be chaos again as everyone woke and had breakfast and prepared to return to their own lives. But for now, it was just the two of them, the widow and the cowboy who had found each other at exactly the right moment. "I always wanted a full house," Isaac murmured, repeating the words he had said that first day, the words that had become something of a family joke over the years. "And I always wanted a partner who saw me as I was and loved me anyway," Josephine replied. "Seems we both got exactly what we needed. More than we needed. We got everything." As the night deepened and the prairie stretched out around them, vast and beautiful under the stars, they remained on the porch, reluctant to let go of the perfect moment. Their house full of sleeping family, their land productive and well-tended, their future bright with promise. The widow had arrived with 5 daughters, and the cowboy had taken them all in without hesitation. What had started as an act of simple kindness had grown into something magnificent. A family bound not by blood alone but by choice, by love, by the commitment to build something beautiful together against the backdrop of the wild Wyoming frontier. It was a full house in every sense, and neither of them would have changed a single thing about their improbable, wonderful life together. The years ahead would bring more changes, more challenges, more joys. Children would grow and leave and return with their own children. The cycle would continue. But through it all, at the center of everything, would be the love between a widow who had found hope when she thought it was lost, and a cowboy who had discovered that the family he wanted had arrived all at once on a dusty afternoon in June. Their story was not unique in the settling of the West. Many families were formed in unexpected ways, built from necessity and circumstance. But to them, to Isaac and Josephine and their children, it was the most important story in the world. It was their story, their legacy, their gift to each other and to the generations that would follow. And on this night, with everyone safely gathered under their roof, with their love as strong as ever, with their future stretching bright before them, they had everything they could possibly ask for. They had each other, they had their family, and they had a full house that would remain full in spirit even as the children grew and scattered. Because once a house is filled with that much love, it never truly empties. It just expands to hold more. Isaac and Josephine Logan had built something that would last, something that would echo through the generations. And it all started with a simple choice to help a stranger in need, made by a lonely cowboy on a summer afternoon in 1878. As they finally headed inside to bed hand in hand, the house seemed to settle around them with satisfaction, as if it too was content with how things had turned out. The full house had found its heart, and that heart would beat strong for many years to come.